This call is being recorded.
Hey, okay,
Hello.
and hey, so I just wanted to, if you may possibly if you could give an introduction of how you came across, of course through YouTube, right? You came across me,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah,
right,
we contacted each other on YouTube, and I said you were saying, "Hey, would you like me to do an interview?" And I said, "Well, yeah, but how about this topic?" And he said, "I've never heard of that." And then the topic is a sleep condition that is formerly called hypnagogia, or more commonly known as sleep paralysis. So we thought
right,
that would be an interesting topic to explore. So one of the things that we were talking about is how this this sleep disorder could be mistaken for schizophrenia through the psychiatry, or even psychology, because of basically it's a topic that it's not really talked about around the water cooler, nor do a lot of parents know how to handle it if their child is going through it. So sometimes it could be called like Monsters Inc. Kids get scared of the closet. It's more than that. It's sleep paralysis is a condition that happens between sleeping and waking, or waking and sleeping. It's some people call it it's not daydreaming. It's you're coming out of a deep sleep or a REM sleep, and your consciousness awakens in your body before your body has a chance for the chemicals that keep you from kicking and acting out your dreams. Some people become aware between those states where you're actually waking up. So that space in between, some people would say you're seeing through the veil or the ethers. Some people have experiences in that, in between that sleep state, that sleep paralysis state, where they become awake, fully awake, and they can't move. They feel frozen. They're trying to scream. They can't move their arms. It feels like a lead weight on them. And then in other times, you might see hallucinations. You might hear voices. You might hear dog collars. Or some people experience the incubus or succubus, uh, where you have it feels like a male entity is messing with a female's body, a human female, or vice versa, that old hag syndrome. So uh, that's something I had when I experienced it myself. I was constantly looking for a remedy, and what is this? What is going on? Why can't I stop this? This is a frightening experience. So
right, right.
that's
I I concur. There's a psychologist named Toby Watson,
mhm.
and I'm familiar with his work. I study psychology, and I love
Yeah.
listening to lectures all the time from the psychologists from like Oxford, Harvard, Radcliffe, these different universities around the world. And I heard Toby Watson speak, and Watson was saying basically the same thing you're saying. He was saying that the medical establishment has come up with a phony, so to speak, a phony line of practice where they repeatedly misdiagnose people for things that they don't comprehend, they don't understand.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
here's take this drug. There's something wrong with you. You have a psychiatric condition. Take this drug. When there's nothing wrong with the individual at all, and people around the country are suffering tremendously because of this. The medical establishment is not educating practically, and
Yeah,
you got
they're
to see
ignorant.
stuff. Right, Dr.
Yeah.
Group. Dr. Group is another doctor. He's a world speaker, and he's educating on the same thing. Um, it sounds like the hypnagogia is a twilight state. An in between state.
Yes.
Like you're saying. I remember when I was younger, there was a saying called a witch riding your back, where you wake up
Yes.
and you can't move, and you're half asleep, half awake.
Yep.
So there
Yep.
definitely is a mystical tradition to explaining this. People
Absolutely. It's been illustrated in paintings by like Francesco Goya, some of those gargoyles, jumping on the fair maiden,
Right.
and she's
Right.
yeah. So I started experiencing these myself when I was a teenager, and I didn't say anything to my parents, because I'd been personally trying to get out of the body to do out of body experiences. So when I inadvertently, for whatever reason, I get stuck in that in between state, and I wish I'd had never gone down that path. So that that's one of those things you tell kids: don't be messing with stuff that you don't fully know what you're getting into, especially when you're so young. So I experienced an incubus when I was in college, and I went to a psychologist. Thank God in the 80s they weren't referring you straight to a psychiatrist, but these days that's what I think about. I misdiagnosis because this happened to my friend. Her daughter had the very same uh symptoms that I had, and it scared her so bad that the mother took her to a psychiatrist and they drugged her. But then when I
Yeah.
started talking to the mother,
It's frightening how miseducated and uneducated the medical establishment is. It's almost like in the 1600s, if you said something intelligible, you might get burned at a stake. There were people burned alive.
Like a witch.
Yeah, there was marvelous, spectacular inventors who came up with all kinds of inventions, and they got burned alive just because they were educated.
Well, and we also have to look at the shamans and Europeans. The Europeans called it hedge witching. If you were able to soar out of your body at night, on a travel that wasn't dreaming, that's what people say it is hedge witching.
Right.
And then
I remember.
we have nowhere in our current society in the United States, in the Western world, to have a dialogue about what this kind of stuff is. It is just it's something embarrassing. As a matter of fact, I was working at a hotel. It was a haunted hotel, and whenever I heard about people talking about the wanting to know if you had any of these spirits that would hold you down, I was like, "Oh, have you ever had that happen?" They'd say yes. I said, "There's a term for that." And when you hand a person a title that describes the what happened to them, it really relieves the person that they aren't going crazy. This man was Hispanic that I'm talking about as an example, and he said, "Oh yes, it was so terrifying. I would be held down at night, and and I couldn't tell my parents because we were Catholic." So he goes, "You've just relieved me. I thought I was going crazy, and I've held this inside all these years."
Right,
So yeah,
right.
it's placed in the paranormal, and where it kind of does fit, because it can't be scientifically verified, because you're the only one experiencing it. Nobody else can see it.
Right. It sounds, it sounds like at this point people have to start getting out the psychological works that have been coming out in the last through a few years, and looking into some of the older approaches in psychology. Are you familiar? Have you ever seen one of those documentaries on Princeton?
On Princeton?
On the the University of Princeton?
On what topic?
Psychology. That's where Albert Einstein. They're mostly known for, Albert Einstein was there at Princeton. They got it.
I'm aware of the college. Yeah, the Ivy League.
Right. But the psychological department there was extremely fascinating. They had some very, very interesting approaches. And going into the 60s, there were some really interesting psychologists. Have you ever heard of self-actualization with Abraham Maslow?
No, it sounds a lot like Ernest Holmes, or what? Go ahead.
Well, the state you were just speaking of, the hypnagogia. Abraham Maslow, he came up with a model for a peak experience, and he was saying within somebody's life they come to certain peak experiences, and sometimes it's like a sexual feeling or a sexual experience can create it, or even a drug experience, you know. And he came up with some
breaking through, like breaking through your normal reality, whatever high. It almost reminds me of Philip Dick, if you've ever heard of his descriptions of.
Philip K. Dick. Yeah, I know Phil. Yeah. He was a science fiction writer, but he was intellectual.
Yeah, he had some really crazy experiences in his delirium in parts of his life that are very intriguing to listen to him talk about.
Yeah, him. And last night, I used to listen to all of them. Terrence McKenna, you know who Terrence McKenna is, don't you?
Yeah.
He was a good friend of Richard Alpert. Like last night, we were talking. You're talking about Ram Dass and Timothy Leary. I used to listen to all of them. Philip K. Dick. Again, Richard Alpert. The first time I came across Richard Alpert was I didn't even know he was a professor. You know, I seen him in a film called Mondo Hollywood. It was a documentary done by Robert Cohen back in the Carl Cohen or Robert Cohen back in the 60s, and there was a small segment of Richard Alpert in Topanga Canyon where he was giving a lecture on psychedelics.
Yeah, and you know what? Keep going.
Well, I was going to say, you know, the real psychologist, you know, they ruined it for the real psychologist because, if I'm correct, LSD became illegal in 1966, at least in this country, you know.
Yeah, but they continued to allow them to be handed out at all the rock and roll concerts, you know.
Well, right. Before LSD was illegal, there were no laws against it, so it was much cleaner. They were given people could make it legally at colleges, at college universities. When it became illegal, then it became like the prohibition, and then it got produced by people who, you know, you didn't know who was making it.
Well, my 75-year I got a story for you real quick. My neighbor that's 75 years old over here, he was telling us that his dad brought home legal LSD and dosed the entire family with window pane acid. He said it made his family cohesive for the first week and the last week of their entire lives. I couldn't believe it.